The bruise on Rosa's cheekbone was already turning purple when she stepped out of the general store into the harsh Montana sunlight, her eyes burning with unshed tears that she refused to let fall where anyone could see them. Bozeman in 1878 was not a place where a 19-year-old woman working as a laundress had many options, and Rosa Everett had learned that lesson hard today. She had only asked Mrs. Henderson, the store owner's wife, if she might teach her letters during the slow afternoon hours. The response had been swift and brutal, a sharp slap across the face, followed by a shove that sent her stumbling into the wooden counter. Mrs. Henderson's voice had been sharp as broken glass when she told Rosa that girls like her, orphans without family or prospects, had no business filling their heads with education. Reading was for decent folk, for people with proper upbringings, not for dirty laundry girls who ought to be grateful for any work at all. Rosa walked quickly down the dusty street, keeping her head down, her dark hair falling forward to hide her face. Her hands trembled as she clutched the few coins she had earned that week. The Montana summer evening was settling over the town, casting long shadows between the wooden buildings. She needed to get back to the boarding house where she rented a cramped room, needed to hide away before anyone else saw her shame. She had made it almost to the edge of town when she heard the horse approaching from behind. Rosa tensed, ready to run if needed, but the rider slowed as he came alongside her. "Evening, miss," a man's voice said, low and careful. "Are you hurt?" Rosa glanced up briefly, meeting the concerned gaze of a cowboy she had seen around town a few times. He was young, maybe 24 or 25, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of the Montana sky. His dark hair needed cutting, and dust covered his clothes from a day's work. She knew his name was Xavier, one of the ranch hands from the spread north of town. He had always been polite on the rare occasions their paths crossed. "I am fine," Rosa said, her accent still carrying traces of her mother's Spanish heritage. She quickened her pace, but he kept his horse at a slow walk beside her. "That bruise on your face says different," Liam said gently. He swung down from his saddle, leading his horse on foot so he would not tower over her. "Did someone hurt you?" Rosa stopped walking, her whole body rigid with the effort of holding herself together. Something about his genuine concern, the kindness in his voice, broke through the wall she had built around her emotions all afternoon. A single tear escaped, rolling down her cheek before she could stop it. "I only asked to learn," she whispered. "I only wanted to read." Liam's jaw tightened, and she saw anger flash in his eyes, but it was not directed at her. He looked back toward the general store, then at Rosa again. "Who did this to you for asking something so reasonable?" Rosa shook her head quickly. She could not afford to lose her laundry work, even if Mrs. Henderson had made it clear she was barely tolerated. "It does not matter. I should not have asked. I should have known better." "That's horse manure," Liam said bluntly, and despite everything, Rosa almost smiled at his directness. "Every person has a right to learn. My mother taught me that before she passed. She made sure I could read and write, said it was the most important gift she could give me." They had reached the boarding house, a shabby building that leaned slightly to one side. Rosa stopped at the bottom of the steps, suddenly aware that she was standing in the street talking to a man she barely knew, that people might see and make assumptions that would make her life even harder. Liam seemed to sense her hesitation. He took off his hat, turning it in his hands. "Miss Everett, I know this is forward and I do not mean any disrespect, but if you want to learn to read, I could teach you. I am not a school teacher, but I know my letters well enough." Rosa stared at him, certain she had misheard. "Why would you do that?" "Because it is the right thing to do," Liam said simply. And because nobody should get hit for wanting to better themselves. He glanced at the darkening sky. I could come by tonight if you want. We could start with the alphabet. No strings attached, no expectations. Just one person helping another. Rosa's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This could be a trick or worse. But when she looked at Liam's face, she saw only honest sincerity. And she wanted so desperately to read, had wanted it for so long that the ache of it was a constant companion. There is a spot behind the boarding house, she heard herself say. By the old oak tree. It is private. If you come in an hour after I have cleaned up, I will meet you there. Liam's face broke into a smile that transformed his serious features. I will be there. I promise. He mounted his horse and rode off toward the livery stable, and Rosa climbed the stairs to her room, her mind spinning. She washed her face carefully, wincing when the cloth touched her bruised cheek. She changed into her only other dress, a faded blue cotton that had been mended so many times the original fabric was hard to distinguish from the patches. She brushed her long dark hair and tied it back with a piece of ribbon that had once been red but had faded to pale pink. The hour passed with agonizing slowness. Rosa sat on her narrow bed, staring at the cracked plaster wall, wondering if Liam would actually come or if he would think better of it. Maybe he had only offered out of pity. Maybe he had been making fun of her and she had been too foolish to see it. But when she slipped out the back door of the boarding house as the last light faded from the sky, she found him waiting under the oak tree. He had cleaned up too, she noticed. His face was freshly washed, his hair damp and combed back. He had a lantern with him, already lit, and several pieces of paper along with a pencil. I was not sure you would come, Rosa admitted, moving to sit on the bench beneath the tree. Liam settled beside her, careful to leave a respectful distance between them. I gave you my word, he said. That means something to me. He set the lantern on the bench between them and laid out one of the papers. In the warm glow of the light, Rosa could see he had drawn large, clear letters across the page. The alphabet has 26 letters, Liam began, his voice taking on the patient tone of a teacher. Each one has a name and a sound. Once you know them all, you can start putting them together to make words. He pointed to the first letter. This is A. It sounds like the beginning of apple or the way you might cry out when you are surprised. Ah. Rosa leaned forward, studying the simple curved shape. A, she repeated softly. Ah, that is right, Liam encouraged. Now this next one is B. It sounds like the beginning of boy or bird. Ba. They worked through the alphabet slowly, Liam pointing to each letter and saying its name and sound, Rosa repeating after him. His patience seemed endless. When she stumbled over the difference between M and N, he drew both letters larger, showing her how to remember which was which. When she confused P and Q, he made up a silly rhyme that made her laugh, the sound surprising them both. The night grew deeper around them, stars appearing one by one overhead. Moths fluttered around the lantern. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. But in their small circle of light, there was only the letters and Liam's steady voice and Rosa's growing excitement as the shapes began to make sense. You are a natural, Liam said after they had gone through the entire alphabet 3 times. Some folks I have tried to help really struggle with this part, but you are picking it up quick. Rosa felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the summer night. You have helped others learn to read, Liam nodded, a slight flush coloring his cheeks. Some of the younger ranch hands never had schooling. I have worked with a few over the years. Figured if someone gave me the gift of reading, I ought to pass it along. He paused, then added quietly, but I have never met anyone who wanted it as much as you clearly do. I can see it in your eyes when you look at these letters. Rosa met his gaze, and something passed between them in that moment, something that made her breath catch. "Reading feels like freedom," she said softly. "Even just these letters, knowing that I can learn them, that I am learning them. It feels like I am claiming something that is mine, something no one can take away." "That is exactly what it is," Liam said, his voice rough with emotion. "Once you can read, you carry a whole world inside your head. Books, newspapers, letters. You are never truly alone because you have stories and ideas and knowledge right there with you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the papers spread between them. Then Rosa asked, "Why are you really doing this? The truth?" Liam was quiet for a long moment, staring at the letters he had drawn. "My mother was like you," he finally said. "She came from nothing, married my father when she was young. He was not a kind man, did not think women needed education. But she taught herself to read anyway, in secret, borrowing books from the church. When my father died and left us with nothing, she was able to get work as a clerk because she could read and write. She saved our lives with those skills." He looked up at Rosa, his blue eyes intense in the lantern light. "She made me promise that if I ever had the chance to help someone the way she was helped, I would do it. So here I am, keeping that promise." "She must have been a remarkable woman," Rosa said gently. "She was," Liam agreed. "You remind me of her, that same determination, that same fire." Rosa felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. She touched the papers lightly, tracing the letter with her fingertip. "Will you come back tomorrow, to teach me more?" "I will come back every night if you want me to," Liam said immediately. "Until you are reading books on your own." "I would like that," Rosa whispered. They met the next night and the night after that. Each evening, after Rosa finished her laundry work and Liam completed his duties at the ranch, they would gather under the oak tree with the lantern and the papers. They reviewed the alphabet until Rosa knew every letter by heart, could recite them forward and backward without hesitation. Then Liam began teaching her simple words, showing her how letters combine to create sounds and meanings. Cat, dog, sun, run. Each word Rosa successfully read felt like a small miracle. She practiced constantly, drawing letters in the dust as she walked to work, tracing them in the air with her finger as she stirred the laundry pots. The bruise on her face faded to yellow and then disappeared entirely, but she stayed away from the general store, sending her rent payment through another girl from the boarding house. As the weeks passed, something else grew alongside Rosa's reading skills. She found herself thinking about Liam during the day, replaying their conversations, remembering the way his face lit up when she mastered a new word. She noticed small things about him. The calluses on his hands from ranch work, the way he pushed his hair back when he was thinking, the patience in his voice that never wavered no matter how many times she had to sound out the same word. One evening in late August, nearly 2 months after their lessons had begun, Rosa successfully read an entire sentence from the newspaper Liam had brought. "The train will arrive in Bozeman on Friday morning carrying supplies for the winter months." She looked up at Liam, her eyes shining with triumph, and found him watching her with such pride and warmth that her breath caught in her throat. "You did it," he said softly. "A whole sentence, Rosa. Do you know how incredible that is?" "I could not have done it without you," Rosa replied. The lantern flickered between them, casting dancing shadows across his face. They were sitting closer than usual tonight, near enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body in the cooling evening air. "You did the hard work," Liam insisted. "I just pointed you in the right direction." He hesitated, then reached out and gently touched her hand where it rested on the newspaper. "Rosa, I have to tell you something." Her heart began to race. "What is it?" "These past weeks, teaching you, talking with you, they have been the best part of my days," Liam said, his words coming out in a rush. I know we started this because you wanted to learn to read, and that is important, but somewhere along the way, I started looking forward to seeing you for reasons that have nothing to do with lessons." He took a breath. "I care about you, Rosa. More than I probably should, considering we have only known each other a short time. But it is the truth, and I needed to say it." Rosa felt tears prick her eyes, but these were good tears, tears of joy rather than pain. "I care about you too," she whispered. "I thought I was foolish for feeling this way, but I cannot help it. When I am with you, I feel safe. I feel valued. You make me believe I am worth something. You are worth everything," Liam said fiercely. He squeezed her hand gently. "You are smart and determined and brave. You deserve every good thing this world has to offer." Rosa smiled, her face radiant in the lantern light. "You have given me so much already, not just reading, but hope. You have shown me that there are good people in this world, people who help without expecting anything in return." "I do expect something," Liam admitted, a slight smile playing at his lips. "I expect that you will let me continue being part of your life, now that you do not need me for lessons anymore. I expect that maybe you will let me court you properly if you are willing." "I am willing," Rosa said, laughing through her happy tears. "I am more than willing." Liam raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles softly, a gesture so gentle and reverent that it made Rosa's heart soar. "Then I am the luckiest man in Montana," he said. They continued their evening meetings, but now the lessons were interspersed with conversation, with laughter, with the slow building of something deep and lasting. Liam told Rosa about his dreams of one day owning his own small ranch, a place where he could raise horses and maybe a family. Rosa shared her secret hope of one day working in a bookshop or a library, surrounded by the written word she had come to love so dearly. As autumn painted the Montana landscape in shades of gold and crimson, Liam began spending more time with Rosa during daylight hours as well. He would meet her after her laundry work finished on Saturday afternoons, and they would walk through town together, Liam pointing out words on signs and in shop windows for Rosa to read. She was getting better every day, moving from simple sentences to more complex passages. The townspeople began to notice them together, and Rosa worried about gossip about her reputation, but Liam was always scrupulously respectful, never giving anyone cause to speak ill of her. He made it clear through his actions that his intentions were serious and honorable. One October evening, as the first chill of winter touched the air, Liam arrived at their meeting spot with a package wrapped in brown paper. "I have something for you," he said, his eyes twinkling with excitement. Rosa took the package, her hands trembling slightly as she unwrapped it. Inside was a book, its leather cover worn but well cared for, its pages filled with printed words. She read the title aloud, her voice thick with emotion. "Jane Eyre" by Charlotte Brontë. "It was my mother's favorite book," Liam said quietly. "She read it so many times the spine is cracked and some of the pages are dog-eared. I thought maybe you would like to have it, now that you can read well enough to tackle a real novel." Rosa clutched the book to her chest, overwhelmed. She knew how precious this must be to him, one of the few possessions he had from his mother. "Liam, I cannot take this. It means too much to you." "It means everything to me," Liam corrected gently. "That is exactly why I want you to have it. You mean everything to me, Rosa. I love you." I have been trying to find the right time to say it, but there never seems to be a perfect moment, so I am just going to say it now. I love you, and I want to spend my life with you. Rosa felt the world narrow down to just the two of them. Just this moment under the oak tree with the book pressed between her hands and Liam's blue eyes fixed on her face. "I love you too," she said, her voice clear and certain. "I think I have loved you since that first night when you promised to teach me the alphabet." You kept your word, and you kept coming back, and somewhere in all those lessons, you taught me more than just reading. You taught me what it means to be valued, to be respected, to be loved." Liam closed the distance between them and kissed her softly, sweetly, a promise sealed with tenderness. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "Marry me," Liam said. "I know I do not have much to offer right now. I have been saving my wages, and I have been talking to Mr. Patterson about buying a piece of land from him, maybe 20 acres at the edge of his property. It is not much, but it is a start. We could build a little house, start our own life together." "Yes," Rosa said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you. I do not need grand things, Liam. I just need you and the chance to build something of our own." They began planning their future together with the same dedication Rosa had brought to learning to read. Liam worked extra hours at the ranch, taking on any task that would earn him additional money. Rosa continued her laundry work, but also started taking in sewing, her skilled hands able to mend and alter clothes for a few extra coins each week. By December, Liam had saved enough to make a down payment on the 20 acres from Mr. Patterson. The land was rough, mostly grassland with a small creek running through one corner and a stand of pine trees on the northern edge, but it had potential. Liam spent his Sundays walking the property with Rosa, pointing out where he would build the house, where they could plant a garden, where a barn could go someday when they had horses. They were married on a cold Saturday morning in January of 1879, in the small church at the edge of Bozeman. Rosa wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, with lace at the collar that Liam had bought from the general store as a wedding gift. There were not many guests, just a handful of ranch hands Liam worked with and a few women from the boarding house, but the church felt full of warmth and joy nevertheless. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Liam kissed Rosa for the first time as her husband, she felt a happiness so complete it brought tears to her eyes. Less than a year ago, she had been struck for asking to learn to read. Now she stood as Mrs. Rosa Xavier, married to a man who loved her, with a future full of possibilities stretching out before them. They spent their wedding night in Liam's small room above the livery stable where he had been living, the space barely big enough for the narrow bed and a single chair, but it felt like a palace to Rosa. Liam was gentle and patient, treating her with the same care and respect he had shown from that very first evening. As Rosa lay in his arms afterward, listening to his steady heartbeat, she thought about all the moments that had led them here, and she sent up a silent prayer of thanks. The winter was hard, but they faced it together. Liam continued working at the ranch while starting to clear their land on weekends. Rosa kept taking in laundry and sewing, saving every penny they could. They spent their evenings in Liam's cramped room, reading aloud to each other from the small collection of books Liam had accumulated over the years. Rosa's reading improved dramatically, and she discovered a particular love for poetry, the way words could be arranged to create beauty and emotion. When spring finally arrived, thawing the frozen ground, Liam began building their house in earnest. Several of the ranch hands came to help, bringing lumber and tools. They worked from sunrise to sunset on Saturdays and Sundays, the frame of the house slowly taking shape on the land Rosa and Liam had chosen, a spot with a view of the mountains to the west and the protection of the pine trees to the north. Rosa worked alongside them, hammering nails and hauling water, refusing to sit idle while others built her home. The men had been skeptical at first, but she proved herself capable and strong, earning their respect. By midsummer, the house was finished. It was small, just 3 rooms with a porch across the front, but it was solidly built and it was theirs. They moved in on a warm July evening, carrying their few possessions across the threshold. Liam had built Rosa a bookshelf, and she carefully arranged their small library on it, running her fingers lovingly across the spines. She could read every title now, could lose herself in stories whenever she wanted. The girl who had been beaten for asking to learn had become a woman with her own home and her own books. That first night in their house, they lay together in the bed Liam had built with his own hands, in the room with walls they had helped raise, and made love with a depth of feeling that left them both breathless. Afterward, Rosa traced the line of Liam's jaw with her finger, marveling at how much her life had changed. "What are you thinking?" Liam asked softly, catching her hand and kissing her palm. "I am thinking about how grateful I am," Rosa said. "For you, for this house, for everything we have built together. A year and a half ago I had nothing and no one. Now I have everything. We are just getting started," Liam promised. "This is only the beginning of our story." He was right. The months that followed were full of hard work but also deep satisfaction. Liam bought their first 2 horses, a mare and a gelding, and began the slow process of building a herd. Rosa planted a large garden, coaxing vegetables from the Montana soil. They acquired chickens, then a milk cow. The little ranch began to take shape, becoming a real working homestead. In the spring of 1880, Rosa discovered she was pregnant. She told Liam one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. The look of wonder and joy on his face was something she would treasure forever. "A baby," he whispered. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to be parents," Rosa confirmed, laughing at his stunned expression. "Are you happy?" "Happy does not begin to cover it," Liam said, pulling her into his arms. "I am overwhelmed. I am terrified. I am more excited than I have ever been in my life." Rosa's pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer and into the fall. Liam was attentive and protective, trying to take over all the heavy work, but Rosa insisted on continuing her normal activities for as long as she was able. She had never been one to sit idle, and pregnancy was not going to change that. She did, however, spend more time reading. She had discovered that Bozeman had established a small lending library in one of the back rooms of the church, and she became a regular visitor, borrowing books and devouring them with the same hunger she had brought to her first lessons. The librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Phillips, took a liking to Rosa and began recommending books she thought Rosa would enjoy. One afternoon in October, Mrs. Phillips asked Rosa if she might be interested in helping at the library a few hours a week. "I am getting on in years," the older woman explained. "And my eyes are not what they used to be. I could use someone with energy and enthusiasm, someone who loves books the way you do. I cannot pay much, but it would be something." Rosa accepted immediately, thrilled at the opportunity. She worked at the library every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, shelving books, helping patrons find what they were looking for, and slowly learning the system Mrs. Phillips had developed for organizing the collection. It was exactly the kind of work she had dreamed about, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment every time she walked through the library door. Liam supported her decision completely, proud of how far she had come. "From not knowing your letters to working in a library in less than 2 years," he said one evening. "You are extraordinary, Rosa." Their son was born on a cold December night, arriving 3 weeks earlier than expected. The labor was long and difficult, attended by a midwife from town, and punctuated by Liam's worried pacing in the main room of the house. But when Rosa finally held the tiny, squalling infant in her arms, every moment of pain was forgotten in the rush of overwhelming love. "He is perfect," Liam breathed, sitting on the edge of the bed and gazing down at his son with awe. He has your eyes. They named him Daniel, after Liam's father despite his flaws, because Liam believed in honoring family and choosing to remember the good. Daniel was a healthy, hungry baby who kept them both exhausted and delighted in equal measure. Rosa would nurse him in the rocking chair Liam had made, reading aloud from whatever book she was currently enjoying, her voice soft in the lamplight. The years that followed were good ones. The ranch continued to grow, Liam's skill with horses becoming well known in the area. He began buying wild mustangs and training them, selling them for a good profit to ranchers and the army. Rosa continued working at the library, eventually taking over most of Mrs. Phillips's duties as the older woman gradually retired. She brought Daniel with her, the boy growing up surrounded by books and learning to read almost as soon as he could talk. In 1883, Rosa gave birth to twin daughters, Grace and Helen, who had Liam's blue eyes and Rosa's dark hair. The house suddenly felt much smaller with 3 children, but it was filled with laughter and love. Liam built an addition, adding 2 more bedrooms and expanding the kitchen. Rosa sometimes thought about Mrs. Henderson, the woman who had struck her for asking to learn to read. She had heard that the general store had closed, the Hendersons moving east to live with their daughter. Rosa felt no satisfaction in this news, only a kind of sad pity. Mrs. Henderson would never know the joy Rosa had found, the life she had built from those first halting letters scratched out by lantern light. Daniel grew into a bright, curious boy who loved the horses as much as his father did. The twins were inseparable, always plotting some mischief together, keeping Rosa and Liam constantly on their toes. The house was noisy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. One evening in the summer of 1886, Rosa and Liam sat on their porch after the children had been put to bed, watching fireflies dance in the warm darkness. They had been married for 7 years, and Rosa still felt a thrill when Liam took her hand. "You ever think about that first night?" Liam asked. "When I taught you the alphabet under the oak tree, I think about it often," Rosa admitted. "It was the night my whole life changed, the night I started becoming who I was always meant to be." "I knew that night that you were special," Liam said. "I did not know I would fall in love with you, but I knew you were someone extraordinary." Rosa leaned her head on his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of him, horses and hay and home. "You saved me, Liam. In every way a person can be saved." "No," Liam said firmly, tilting her face up to look at him. "You saved yourself. You had the courage to ask for what you wanted even after you were hurt for it. You had the determination to learn, the strength to keep going. I just held the lantern. You did all the hard work." "We saved each other then," Rosa compromised, smiling. "Is that better?" "That is the truth," Liam agreed, kissing her softly. By 1890, the ranch had grown to encompass 60 acres. Liam had bought the adjacent property when it became available, and they now ran a substantial horse operation with 3 hired hands to help with the work. The original small house had been expanded twice more and now sprawled comfortably across the land, with a proper barn and several outbuildings. Daniel, at 10 years old, was already an accomplished rider who helped his father with the horses. The twins, 7 now, attended the school in Bozeman and were learning to read with the same passion their mother had shown. Rosa had taken over the library entirely when Mrs. Phillips passed away peacefully in her sleep, and she had expanded the collection significantly, organizing fundraisers and donation drives to bring more books to their growing town. Rosa was 31 years old and living a life she could not have imagined in her darkest days. She had a husband who loved and respected her, 3 healthy children, meaningful work, and more books than she could ever read in a lifetime. She had learned to write as well as read, and she kept a journal where she recorded the everyday miracles of their life together. One particular entry, written in October of 1890, captured the essence of how far she had come. Today Daniel read his first full novel, staying up past his bedtime because he could not put the book down. I remember that feeling, that magical discovery of losing yourself in a story. Watching him experience it filled me with such joy I could barely contain it. This is the legacy Liam gave me when he taught me to read under the oak tree all those years ago. Not just the ability to read myself, but the ability to pass that gift on to my children, to ensure they never have to fight for something that should be every person's right. I am grateful every single day for the man who saw potential in a bruised laundry girl and took the time to teach her the alphabet. I am grateful for the life we have built together, brick by brick, word by word, day by day. I am grateful to be Mrs. Liam Xavier, and I will be grateful for that for the rest of my days. In 1893, Rosa opened a small bookshop next to the library. A long-time dream finally realized. She ordered books from publishers back east, selling them at reasonable prices to the people of Bozeman and the surrounding ranches. It was not a moneymaker, but it sustained itself, and it filled a need in the community. She loved recommending books to customers, seeing the excitement on their faces when they discovered a new favorite author. Liam was immensely proud of her accomplishments, bragging to anyone who would listen about his wife, the librarian and bookseller. He never let her forget how remarkable she was, even when she protested that she was just doing what she loved. Their marriage remained strong through the passing years, built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. They still sat together most evenings, reading aloud to each other or simply talking about their days. They had weathered hard times, droughts that threatened the ranch, a terrible winter that killed several horses, the usual struggles of raising children and running a business, but they had faced everything together, and their partnership had only grown stronger. In 1896, Daniel left for college in the East, the first member of either of their families to pursue higher education. Rosa cried when she said goodbye to her son at the train station, but they were tears of pride as well as sadness. Daniel wanted to study veterinary medicine, to come back and help ranchers throughout Montana care for their animals. It was a good dream, a worthy dream, and Rosa and Liam would support him in it. The twins were 13 now, beautiful and spirited girls who kept them constantly entertained with their antics. Grace wanted to be a teacher. Helen had announced her intention to become a doctor, despite everyone telling her that was impossible for a woman. Rosa told her daughter that anything was possible if she wanted it badly enough, if she was willing to work for it. She should know. On a warm summer evening in 1898, Rosa and Liam celebrated their 19th wedding anniversary. The children had conspired to give them a rare evening alone. Daniel home from college for the summer, and enlisted to take his sisters into town for dinner and a church social. Rosa and Liam took advantage of the solitude, making love slowly in the afternoon light streaming through their bedroom window, then lying tangled together in comfortable silence. "You ever regret it?" Rosa asked eventually, her head pillowed on Liam's chest. "Marrying me, taking on someone with nothing," Liam laughed, the sound rumbling under her ear. "Not once, not for a single second. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Rosa. You and our children, this life we have built together, I would not change any of it, even the hard parts." Rosa pressed. "Especially the hard parts," Liam said firmly. "The hard parts taught us what we are capable of. They showed us how strong we are together." He paused, then added softly, "My only regret is that I did not find you sooner, that you had to suffer before we met." Rosa propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. If things had been different, we might never have met at all. Everything happened exactly as it needed to happen to bring us together. I believe that. You sound like a romance novel, Liam teased, but his eyes were serious and full of love. I have read enough of them to know how the story is supposed to go, Rosa replied with a smile. The heroine faces trials and hardships, but she perseveres. She meets the hero who sees her true worth. They overcome obstacles together and build a life filled with love and meaning. We are living that story, Liam. We have been living it for 19 years. And we will keep living it for many more, Liam promised, pulling her down for a kiss. The years continued to pass, marked by milestones and memories. Daniel graduated from veterinary school and returned to Montana, opening a practice in Bozeman and courting the daughter of one of the ranchers Liam did business with. Grace went to normal school to become a teacher, fulfilling her dream. Helen, stubborn and determined like her mother, found a medical school back east that would accept women and threw herself into her studies with fierce dedication. Rosa and Liam grew older together, silver threading through their hair, lines deepening on their faces, but the love between them remained as strong as ever. They had been through so much together, built so much together. The scared laundry girl and the kind cowboy had become a respected rancher and a beloved librarian, pillars of their community, parents and eventually grandparents. In 1905, Daniel married his sweetheart Emily in a beautiful ceremony at the ranch. A year later, they gave Rosa and Liam their first grandchild, a boy they named Liam after his grandfather. Rosa held the baby and thought about the circle of life, how she had once been unable to read her own son a bedtime story, but now her son was reading to his son, passing down the gift that had changed everything. The bookshop and library thrived under Rosa's care. She had trained several assistants over the years, young women who shared her love of reading and her belief that books could change lives. She had created a scholarship fund for children who wanted to attend school but whose families could not afford it. She had personally taught dozens of adults to read over the years, remembering always how Liam had given her that gift under the oak tree. In 1908, Liam and Rosa celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary with a large party at the ranch. All three of their children were there, along with their growing families. Friends from town, ranch hands past and present, customers from the bookshop, patrons from the library. The house and yard were full of people, full of laughter and music and joy. Rosa stood on the porch at one point, surveying the scene, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her life had been hard at times, but it had also been beautiful. She had known love in its truest form. She had raised children who were making their own marks on the world. She had helped countless people discover the transformative power of reading. Liam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Xavier?" "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Rosa said, leaning back against him. "How lucky we are, the luckiest," Liam agreed, turning her in his arms to face him. "I love you, Rosa. I have loved you from the moment you agreed to meet me under that oak tree. I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "I love you too," Rosa replied, her eyes shining with happy tears. "Thank you for teaching me the alphabet that night. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for giving me this life. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for what you wanted," Liam countered. "Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. Thank you for 30 years of happiness." They kissed there on the porch, surrounded by the sounds of celebration, two people who had found each other against the odds and built something lasting and true. The years that followed were gentle ones. Liam gradually handed over more of the ranch operations to Daniel, while remaining involved in the parts he loved most, the training of the horses. Rosa continued working at the library well into her 60s, finally retiring when her eyesight began to fail. Even then, she volunteered regularly, unable to stay away from the books and the people who loved them. They had 4 grandchildren eventually, and they delighted in spoiling each one. Their house remained a gathering place for the family. Holiday dinners and summer barbecues and quiet Sunday afternoons with multiple generations sprawled across the furniture. Rosa kept her journal faithfully, recording the small moments that made up a life well lived. Liam's hand in hers as they walked their property, the sound of grandchildren's laughter, the smell of books and leather and home, the everyday miracles that were easy to miss if you were not paying attention. In the spring of 1920, Liam became ill. The doctor said it was his heart, that it was simply wearing out after 6 decades of faithful service. He spent his final weeks in the bedroom he had shared with Rosa for more than 40 years, surrounded by family, holding Rosa's hand. "I am not afraid," he told her one evening when they were alone. "I have lived a good life. I have loved you and been loved by you. A man cannot ask for more than that." Rosa, her own heart breaking, kissed his weathered hand. "You gave me everything," she whispered. "You saw me when I was invisible. You taught me to read, and in doing so, you taught me that I had value, that I deserved more than the world seemed willing to give me. You loved me when I felt unlovable. You built this life with me, this beautiful, impossible life." "We built it together," Liam corrected weakly. "Equal partners from that very first night. You did not need me to complete you, Rosa. You were always complete. I just had the privilege of walking beside you." Liam Xavier passed away peacefully on a May morning, with Rosa holding his hand and their children gathered around the bed. He was 66 years old. He had been married to the love of his life for 41 years. Rosa mourned deeply, as was natural after losing someone so fundamentally woven into the fabric of her life. But she did not break. Liam had taught her too well the lesson of her own strength. She continued on, supported by her children and grandchildren, finding comfort in her routines and her memories. She lived another 8 years, remaining sharp and engaged until nearly the very end. She saw Helen become one of the most respected doctors in Montana, treating patients who would have turned away from her in earlier years. She saw Grace inspire a generation of students with her passionate teaching. She saw Daniel build the veterinary practice into something serving ranchers across 3 counties. She saw her grandchildren grow and begin to make their own ways in the world. She told them stories about their grandfather, about the cowboy who had taught a laundry girl the alphabet by lantern light, and changed the course of her entire life. Rosa Xavier died peacefully in her sleep in November of 1928, at the age of 69. She was buried next to Liam on a hill overlooking their ranch, the mountains visible in the distance, the wind carrying the scent of pine and grass. The family found her journal among her possessions, decades of entries chronicling a life transformed by love and literacy. On the final page, dated just a week before her death, she had written, "I have been thinking about beginnings and endings, about the strange paths our lives take. I was beaten for asking to learn to read, and a cowboy taught me the alphabet that same night. From that simple act of kindness grew everything that mattered: love, family, purpose, joy. I learned to read, and in learning to read, I learned to live fully, to claim my place in the world, to believe in my own worth. Liam gave me that gift, but the lesson went both ways. In teaching me, in loving me, he became the man he was meant to be. We saved each other again and again in ways large and small. And now I go to join him, grateful for every moment we had together, every word we shared, every page we turned. This story has been a good one, full of love and laughter and meaning. I close the book with no regrets, only thankfulness that I was brave enough, all those years ago, to ask for what I wanted and wise enough to recognize love when it appeared, patient and kind, holding a lantern in the darkness and offering to teach me letters. The bookshop and library continued to thrive, eventually merging into the Rosa Xavier Public Library, funded by an endowment the family established in her honor. Her story became part of Bozeman's history, told and retold as an example of what was possible when kindness met determination, when one person took the time to help another. And sometimes, on warm summer evenings, if you walked past the old boarding house where Rosa and Liam first gathered beneath an oak tree, you could almost see them there still. Two young people bent over paper in lantern light, building a love story one letter at a time, proving that education and compassion could change not just one life but generations to come.